IDP Plus podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, and on this episode, I'm going to give you defensive line sleepers for your upcoming 2025 Redraft Leagues. So since the last episode when I talked about defensive back sleepers, since then I've been diving into the world of defensive linemen, both on Yahoo and Sleeper. Now Yahoo, I've just been looking at rankings for this season. In Sleeper, I've been actually in a handful of best ball IDP strictly only drafts. So not only do I think these are going to be sleepers coming into the year, the proof is in the pudding. I know they're going to be sleepers based on where they're ranked and being drafted right now. And the first guy I'm going to give you, definitely not a household name, but somebody, if you're an IDP head, you've heard before, and that's Malcolm Koonce, 27-year-old defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders. He was a 2021 third-round pick. We forgot about him last year. He did tear an ACL in the preseason, so 2024 did not play a snap. But if we look back to 2023, that's where we remember him from. He had a breakout year already in 23. He was part-time for the first 2 years before that, before his big breakout year. And actually, I think it was pretty modest. I think there's more to be said. But anyway, 2023, he played 44% of defensive snaps, totaled 43 tackles. 32 of those, by the way, were solos. 11 were assists. He also had 9 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 17 quarterback hits, and an outstanding 3 forced fumbles. Now, looking further into this breakout year he had, it was a full snap, a full slate of games, 17 games played, so he did not miss a game. But coincidentally, only 3 out of the first 12 games that Koonce played were 40% of defensive snaps or higher. So really had this breakout year with majority of the season not even playing over 40% of snaps. Then we flash forward to weeks 13 through 17 for you guys who are lacking in math. That is 5 games, myself included. In those 5 games, 62% of snaps played, 17 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. So really those last 5 games are what I'm putting under the microscope. I'm not really looking at those first 12 games. Sure, there was a couple games where the production was good given limited snaps, but really when he got into a full-time role, and there's defensive linemen out there that are playing close to 85-90% of snaps, so it's not cream of the crop, but 62% of the snaps is pretty hefty for a edge rusher, and that'll suffice. Many times in IDP we say opportunity is key. You'll hear me say that with a couple of these guys, but Malcolm Koonce, 62% during that last 5-game stretch. If that can become the norm, I do think that Malcolm Koonce is going to have a breakout 0.2 year. Keep in mind, maybe something that's deterring people right now. He did tear his ACL again in the 2024 preseason. Right now, Sleeper has him outside of the top 50 as far as rankings, and Yahoo has him outside of the top 50 as well, all the way down to 64. And through my experience drafting these best ball IDP leagues, I have not seen Malcolm Koonce go inside the top 50 defensive linemen. So very promising here for a sleeper nomination. I do believe that Malcolm Koonce is the best edge rusher on the team outside of Max Crosby. So who better to put basically at a full-time role opposite of Max Crosby than Koonce? I mean, they have Adam Butler playing defensive tackle there. He is a fine defensive tackle play as far as getting tackles, but really looking at the sack production, it's going to come from, of course, Max Crosby, but I think also this breakout year was not an aberration. I think this is a sign of things to come, and only 27 years old, I think this is a perfect year for Malcolm Koonce to put all the cards back together and have a breakout year. Before I move on, I just wanted to mention, as a kind of an honorable mention, Christian Wilkins. You're probably thinking I'm crazy for mentioning him. But that's what we do in IDP. That's a vet move. When everyone says run away, he's on the PUP list, I'm actually going to take some time and look at Christian Wilkins. First off, Christian Wilkins, of course, right now it's a horrible deal. 4 years, $110 million deal. Only played 5 games last year in 2024. He is, as I stated before, on the PUP list. But of course, any time in the preseason, these players can be taken off that physically unable to perform list. So right now he's off the radar. He's off people's minds. This is somebody who was getting drafted in best ball, but as of right now with the PUP noise, and rightfully so, I mean, he has a Jones fracture from a season ago that, it seems like he's had a few complications. Will he ever get back on the field? That's a question in itself, but keep tabs on him. Put him on your watch list, because in the 3 seasons before last season, we're just going to void out the 5 games. The last 3 seasons with Miami, 252 tackles, 17 sacks, 36 tackles for loss, 43 quarterback hits. And not to say that he hasn't shown up in those 5 games with Vegas. He still had in those 5 games 17 tackles, 2 sacks, and 6 quarterback hits. So again, as an honorable mention here, we're going for Malcolm Koonce, but Christian Wilkins, if you can hold a couple weeks in the season and maybe stash him on an IR spot, I do think it's a good nomination, especially in those deeper leagues. Doesn't necessarily need to be drafted, but definitely a watch list candidate. Moving into number 2, we're going to take a look at Keion White. When so many offseason moves were made in a positive direction for the Patriots, I don't think Keion White is really getting the love, the attention that he deserves to. Of course, we saw him start off in a scorching pace in 2023, weeks 1 through 3, 82 defensive snaps, 17 tackles, 4 sacks. Actually, those 4 sacks were in the first 2 games, but looking at the first 3, while the snaps and the tackles were there, again, 82% of defensive snaps, 17 tackles, 4 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 7 quarterback hits. Now, after weeks 1 through 3, he only had 1 more sack the entire season, as well as 39 more tackles with 4 tackles for loss. Would go on to play a full season, 74% of snaps when it was all said and done. And actually, 74% of snaps, looking at defensive linemen, would be good for 23rd most amongst defensive linemen last year. So I think that, when you look at the list of, go ahead, you can look up defensive linemen who played the most snaps in 2024. When you look at that list and you see the first 25, of course, Keion White is 23, but the first 25 names, I'd say, 85 to 90% of those are D1 or DL1s, DL2s. So it's a great company to be in for Keion White. Of course, I'm going to say it again. Opportunity is key. I don't really like rostering defensive linemen that are out there rotational, like 40, 50% of snaps. To me, it's tough to pay the bills on a guy like that. But Keion White is kind of putting a great salad mix together here. He's got the dressing, he's got the tomatoes, he's got the cucumbers. I think it's a perfect storm. The snaps are there. We know the type of pedigree he was. He was a high draft pick just a few years ago. Only 26 years old. So really still on an upward trajectory in his career. And even with the lackluster finish last year, he led New England in quarterback hits with 16. He tied for first in sacks with 5. And he also tied for second in forced fumbles with 2. So first off, if you Google right now Keion White's name, I guarantee you almost every link to it article has the word breakout in it. So this is not a me coming up out of thin air with this. I mean, this is hand in hand with what a lot of people are thinking about Keion White, but I'm just not seeing it being reflected in the rankings. I mean, Sleeper, outside of the top 50 defensive linemen in all 4 drafts that I've seen finish so far, so still not to be drafted in that 5th league. Yahoo, he's right now projected 0 points the whole season. Don't know why, but people that are putting weight into those rankings are definitely not counting on Keion White to make a high impact this season, and I think that's regrettable. I think the fact that the Patriots bolstered their offensive line with guys like Harold Landry, Milton Williams, Clavon Chasen. A lot of guys are kind of focused on that and saying, where is Keion White going to be when all these big names are here? But I'm here to tell you the snaps grew from 2023, 521 snaps, to last season, 829. And I'm not saying they're going to grow by another 300. I don't even think the Patriots will be on the field that much collectively. But I do see, maybe this, I think it was 74%. Maybe it, creeps up towards the 80 mark. That's all we need here. And we need Keion White to be comfortable. We need him to make good on that added pressure. Other guys, Harold Landry's a big name. I'm going to get talking about him a little bit later in a conversation piece. But when Harold Landry's on the field, you've got to pay attention to him. So I think that added attention next to Keion White is actually going to benefit Keion White, and he'll be able to get to the quarterback. And of course, I like talking about tackles and all my IDP picks. And, the tackles weren't exactly popping off, but it wasn't like he was a 1 to 2 tackle type of guy. I mean, in those first 3 games, 17 tackles. That's an average over 5 tackles. I'm not saying he's going to, completely, go on that page of a 5 tackle average. That would be phenomenal. That would be, Derrick Brown numbers, but that's just simply not going to happen. But Keion White is somebody who can make a nice blend of tackles and sacks potentially. So this might be the year for Keion White with a draft, price as basically a DL4 right now. I think he absolutely could have DL2 upside, and maybe in tackle heavy forms, even DL1 upside. So on a team where the Patriots were dead last in sacks last year with just 28 sacks in 2024, they need help. Of course, they addressed the position. They signed some great guys, but I think Keion White is one of the guys who's going to actually benefit the most, and not really one of those guys that come in. I mean, of course, Harold Landry, we're drafting him higher than Keion White. Milton Williams, I see go a little bit higher. Chase on, about the same here as Keion White, but I think Keion White may provide the best value out of these 3 guys. So, again, if he can get close to that 75-80% mark, just a little uptick, that's not too much to ask. And I think that the comfortability, the happiness he has with new coach Mike Vrabel, you can read articles on him not being too happy with Gerard Mayo as the coach. So maybe the stars are aligning here in New England on the defensive line, and maybe Keion White is the biggest benefactor in that. Before we move on, I just wanted to mention Bob Lung's consistency guide. If you haven't heard right now, you can get a leg up on your opponents with Bob Lung's annual 10th annual edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. Of course, consistency is huge in fantasy football. I'm not sure if it goes towards IDP or just offense, but you can purchase yours for a measly $15 on Amazon. Just search the words 2025 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. And of course, if you know Bob Lung, I'm sure you do. He runs the Expo. Anything that Bob touches is gets approval in my book. So check out that consistency guide. You won't be disappointed. Moving on to my third guy, that is Derrick Brown, who I mentioned a couple minutes ago. Derrick Brown is 27 years old, prime of his career, coming off of a major knee injury, though, torn meniscus. He missed the entire 2020. Well, I shouldn't say entire. He played week 1 and actually finished week 1 with the torn meniscus. Happened somewhere in the game, but he still played 91% of snaps in that game. And that holds a lot of weight in my book, kind of an Iron Man status. And, 90% that he had in 2023 led the league as far as defensive linemen. Of course, I'm going to say it again, opportunity is key. And when you have the league leader in snaps playing on your fantasy team, of course, you're going to soak up those tackles. Not somebody who is a huge sack guy, but still he can have improvement in that realm of his game as well. But going back to it, towards the meniscus, but still finished week 1. We're really going to talk about, because last year was basically a throwaway, we're going to go to his breakout year in 2023 when he played 17 games, full slate, played 89% of defensive snaps, led the league again. With 103 tackles, broke a record for a defensive tackle. 103 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 15 quarterback hits, an interception, and actually it wasn't his first interception. That was a second interception in his career, and also 6 passes defensed. And another miraculous stat here for Derrick Brown in that great campaign of 2023, 2 double-digit tackle games. He actually had 2 games with 10 tackles. He had a 9 tackle game, 2 8 tackle games, 2 7 tackle games, 2 6 tackle games. This guy is my guy because I'm out here searching for not guys who can rack up the sacks. I don't care about that. I mean, even if it's 5-6 points for a sack, I'm still honing in on the tackles here, especially when it happens at this high of a rate. So Derrick Brown, I know, not everyone plays in tackle heavy scoring, but if you're playing in tackle heavy scoring, you really can't find a more solid player. There's guys out there that, we all know can get you, and they can have a 3-point game, they can have a 15-point game. I'd rather have the guy who can give me 8 to 10 points every week. I'm not going to win on a defensive lineman, and I'm not going to try to lose on a defensive lineman. So if he can just give me 8 to 12 points week in and week out, that's pretty much a DB1 or a DL1 in my eyes. Even if the cumulative points won't be as much as TJ Watt or Aiden Hutchinson, some of those big guys, I still think Derrick Brown is in that realm. He just doesn't get that respect because the lack of sacks. Now, to back up my point even further, in 2022, we saw signs of a breakout, 75% of snaps, but still had 67 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 7 pass defense, 12 quarterback hits, an interception, and a sack. And I'll tell you one thing right now, managers out there may be a little hesitant, not only because the meniscus injury he's coming off, he's a big boy, there's no way around that, but also there was a defensive lineman by the name of Ashawn Robinson, who is still on the team as of right now. And we look at Ashawn Robinson, we said, you know what, he had a career year, he had 80 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. I can't beat around the bush. Ashawn Robinson was a factor in fantasy IDP leagues out there last season, especially tackle heavy. However, Ashawn Robinson, if you look up his name on Google, it's not all fine and dandy. Just because someone does well in IDP doesn't mean they did well on the NFL field, on the NFL perspective, real life game. And that's kind of the tale here with Robinson. When you look at his PFF grade, only 57% as a grade on rush, 54 as a grade on run grade, and a 55 grade overall. That's pretty bad. Can't beat around the bush there either. So, Ashawn Robinson, he was on the field. He played a lot of snaps, maybe in place of the loss of Derrick Brown. But I do not think this is a situation where we have to move Derrick Brown down in the rankings because Ashawn Robinson had this big year. I think actually Ashawn Robinson is more of a sell high trade candidate. And I think Derrick Brown, there's no way around it. He is the cream of the crop, leader of the defensive line, if not leader of the entire defense. He is the guy there. So heart and soul, 27 years old, prime of his career. He should be treated as a defensive lineman too, with a DL1 upside, especially in those tackle heavy formats. This is probably my number one guy I'm hunting. Let people jump on the early Max Crosby's, the TJ Watts. If I can get maybe in the 20 to 25 range, that's where he is right now. On Yahoo, Derrick Brown is ranked, and this is of course tackle heavy scoring that I'm searching, but he's 23rd in Yahoo. In Sleeper, I've seen him go as of right now, because we're early. Not a lot of hype has came out, not a lot of optimism that he's over that knee injury, but I think he will be. I haven't heard any negatives in that aspect. But on Sleeper, he's going outside of the top 50 defensive linemen. So huge value here. This is a very dependable player. And that's the thing with defensive linemen. I don't like to really throw darts and try to chase that 1 sack and 2 tackles or just no sacks and 2 tackles. I like to go for guys that will give me 4 to 6 tackles. And I think Derrick Brown is going to do it again. Listen, folks, I'm not saying 103 tackles. He's going to beat that and set the new record. You can't even expect him to hit 100, but let's just say he goes, 80, 90 tackles should be attainable here. And I don't see any other defensive lineman really, beating him as far as tackles if he stays healthy. So, again, don't expect 100 sacks. 100 plus tackles. But when we look at the sack ratio, the sacks have been low. His career high is 3. Maybe he can give us an 80 sack season and 80 tackle season and 5 sacks. That would be a fair trade-off, and that would still be borderline DL1 numbers. So Derrick Brown, I'm high on this year. If people are sleeping on him right now, let's see what the preseason does. But if that continues, I think that's a guy you want to pounce on nonetheless. Before I get into my number 4 guy, I wanted to talk about the Fantasy Football Expo that I will be going to. It is August 8th through the 10th, Friday through Sunday. Get your 2025 Fantasy Football Expo tickets at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. It's this August, the 8th through the 10th in Canton, Ohio. Check out the new fan packages. And you can join us and other well-known content creators at the NFL Hall of Fame in Village. Check out our IDP Plus booth if you do stop by the Expo coming up. Moving on to number 4. And this is a guy I'm kind of saying is a sleeper, but we all know his name, and I don't know how it's going to go this year for him, but I wanted to put him on the map here, and that's Jeffrey Simmons, 27 years old, prime of his career. He's been, money for us the last 3 or 4 years, was a Pro Bowler 3 out of the 6 seasons he's played so far, another Pro Bowl year last year in 2024. Only 5 sacks last year, but he did have a career high 76 tackles, 11 tackle for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 pass defense. No way around it. Jeffrey Simmons was a solid rosterable defensive lineman in just about every league. Of course, if you've heard my podcast, I've mentioned before when it comes to defensive linemen, if you can get me 50-plus tackles and 5 or more sacks, you're rosterable in my eyes. And that's kind of what Jeffrey Simmons is. He's eclipsing this number, and it's a pretty fair number for him. Looking at the last 3 seasons on average, and I'll put a little caveat, he did miss 8 games combined over the last 3 seasons. So missing 8 games, he's averaged 58 tackles and 6 sacks over the last 3 years. There's some years that are better than others in there, but as a whole, that's fits the bill. Over 50 tackles, over 5 sacks. Yep, boom, 58 and 6. Titans. Now, and I'm gonna say this too. I see right now Jeffrey Simmons starting to slip. In sleeper drafts that I've done, I've seen him go as the 28th defensive lineman, as the 34th, all the way to up to the 49th was the lowest I've seen him go. Right now, Yahoo has him ranked as the 39th defensive lineman in tackle heavy scoring, and a big factor in how this is going to go. He absolutely could be a value. Let's just look at Yahoo, 39th. He could be a top 25 defensive lineman, and easily. However, the Titans, keep in mind, they cut Harold Landry. Landry's now playing for the Patriots. Simply thinking, we're probably thinking that, hey, Harold Landry's not there. It's going to get more tackles and more sacks for Jeffrey Simmons. I'm not exactly sure that's how it's going to go. There's no doubt about it. Simmons is going to get more attention now that Harold Landry is no longer there. And Harold Landry is more of the sack guy compared to Simmons, but Simmons definitely will be asked to replicate some of that production loss from Landry. But the key to me is not only, Jeffrey Simmons, what he can control, it's what he can't control. And that is how will Arden Key, T'Vondre Sweat, Draymond Jones, the other guys on the defensive linemen, how are they going to adjust when, Simmons is getting probably more pressure now? Are they going to, get to the quarterback and make teams rethink the double team on Jeffrey Simmons? Because I know it's coming. So those guys play a pivotal role here. We don't really know much about them at this point until the training camp rolls around, maybe even until the preseason and regular season rolls around. But if you're confident in Arden Key, T'Vondre Sweat, Draymond Jones, if you think that they can get to the quarterback, well, then that's great for Jeffrey Simmons, because he's going to lose that double team, and maybe there's a chance that he can get more sacks as well because Landry's not there anymore. Keep in mind, Jeffrey Simmons, as it stands right now, coming into the year, has lost 20 pounds. He's aiming for more sacks, trying to cut that weight. And don't get me wrong, I think aiming for Simmons on your team is great. I still think that this 28 through 39 rank for Jeffrey Simmons does not do him justice. I still think it's a good buy. But, if we can get his 2021 numbers, I think that's really, what we're banking on, right? We don't need the 76 tackles. 2021, he had 54 tackles, 8.5 sacks. That's basically saying the tackles are going to cut and the sacks will elevate a little bit. I think that's what, his body's shaped for. I think that's what the situation is shaped for. So I do think there's a regression come from tackles here with Jeffrey Simmons, but I still think he's a fine value right here in the 30s. Looking at DL3s, basically. I don't think he's a DL3. I think he's a DL2, and I'm going to roll the dice here still with Jeffrey Simmons. But beware, things aren't exactly, don't expect the same production. Things aren't exactly what they seem without Harold Landry there. Moving into my last guy, but before I do, I just wanted to mention, I had mentioned I was doing drafts on best ball drafts on Sleeper. Yahoo, I don't believe, has IDP best ball drafts, but right now you can get IDP best ball drafts on FastDraft. So go to FastDraft. It's on the App Store. It's an app, betting app. Download it, and right now when you use my promo code +Johnny, you can deposit $50 and get $50 free. It's called a deposit match. So if you want to deposit $30, you get $60 in your bank account when you use that promo code +Johnny. So check out FastDraft. It's an even faster way to draft than doing best balls on Sleeper. And so they have, I think you draft 6 IDP players. I'm even doing some of those, and I believe it's on 90% filled. So it's not going to go forever. Get in there and check out FastDraft. Moving on to my 5th and final breakout, and not even a breakout, kind of more so sleeper, and that is Kwity Paye based on average draft position. So Kwity Paye, we all know him by now. He's basically a solid DL3. He has a week-to-week upside of a DL2. Not a household name, in the football community, but in IDP, we know who Kwity Paye is. 26 years old. He is in a contract year, which is a big detail in this situation. So Kwity Paye in 2024, 15 games played, 65% of snaps. And even though he missed 2 games, he still had 41 tackles, 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. He had 40-plus tackles with 6-plus sacks in all 3 of the last 3 seasons, which is pretty impressive. 2023, he had 52 tackles and 8.5 sacks, and that's a key year right there. If we can get that production this season, that over 50 tackles and 7 or 8 sacks, Kwity Paye is who we think he is, right? We know there's going to be some peaks and valleys in there. Most defensive ends, this position is just kind of a volatile week to week, but still should be drafted as a solid DL3. Right now on Sleeper, he is going, again, outside of the top 50. Yahoo's projections, he is a clean ranked 50th overall. So definitely somebody who you can, basically use a second or last round pick and take and get, what you're getting. DL3 production, again, week to week, he has more upside any given week, but overall, it's probably not going to be a DL1 by the time this season is through. But Kwity Paye, don't forget about him if you're kind of like fading defensive linemen. You want to get value on other IDP positions, or even better yet, offense. I think Kwity Paye is a guy you should be interested in. So that's all I have for this week. Thank you for tuning in, watching my Sleeper defensive lineman. Drop your questions in the comment section below. I will get back to all of those comments you may have. Next time you see me on the next episode, we will be talking about our favorite IDP position, sleepers for our favorite IDP position, and that is linebacker. So thank you for rocking with me. Stay tuned for our other upcoming articles and videos that are coming out, and become a subscriber on our YouTube channel, and go to idpplus.com. Become a subscriber there too. We have all kinds of great tools, weekly rankings, weekly finishes, and snap counts, snap tools, a bunch of different tools. So check us out over on idpplus.com. And until next time, stay blessed.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.